I don't think at this point it's a matter of opinion, is Doge doing a good job? Do you agree with that statement or not is a reflection of your ability to perceive the world as it exists, not as you want it to be?
Let's talk about Doge. So, friend of the show, Michael Yaffy.
Is that what we're calling him?
That's right. He's another radio host on one of the stations that we are on, or two of the stations. We share two stations with Michael. And he had a tweet that I disagreed with, where he was saying that Doge is one of the most important things that the government has done in his lifetime. And I thought that was crazy. So I tweeted about it. And here he is on his radio station reading my tweet and reacting to it.
I know that the guys, Jacob Morrison and the guys with the Valley Labor Report are criticizing me today on social media. If you want to like the Yaffy Facebook page or follow me on X at Yaffy, you can see this. It's on X. You might remember yesterday I talked about Doge, and my main point was to criticize Congress because I like Doge, but I think if we really need to cut spending, cut the size of government, Congress is going to have to play a role. And I said this, I still believe Doge might be one of the most important things done in government in my lifetime, but where the hell is Congress? I love everything Elon Musk has done, but he can only do so much. It seems Congress was willing to stand back and do nothing while Musk and Trump took all the arrows. With all the good work by Doge, we still have barely scratched the surface on what needs to be cut. So my main point was to criticize of Congress, but the Valley Labor Report, which you can hear on this station on the weekends, they said this.
That's right.
They said, folks really do live in totally different worlds. He said, in the real world, Doge is an unmitigated failure. No real waste, fraud, abuse found. Those are crimes. Now, I want to point out, and maybe this is what they meant, waste is not a crime necessarily. There's a lot of waste in government that was legal, but still wasteful. So I do have to point that out. He says it misrepresents what line items it has cut. It's also extremely unpopular. And I responded to this. By the way, it's not extremely unpopular. There are parts of it that are popular. The majority of people do want to cut waste and cut the size of government.
So there you go. We're going to talk about like the substance of it, but I want to spend just a little bit of time on the is it popular? And so if you ask people, should we make government efficient? Like everyone thinks that we should make government efficient. The question is, how do you do that? Is Doge doing that? What does that mean? What does being efficient mean? Does being efficient mean you cut the size of government, or does that mean that you empower government to act in the world? Right? I think that's what being an efficient government means. The New Deal government was an efficient government because we empowered the government to do things, to go out into the world and build. I mean, it is amazing how many public parks exist today because of the Works Progress Administration and the Civilian Conservation Corps that was set up during the New Deal. That was an efficient government, right? And so what does that mean? But, the questions, is Doge doing a good job? Do not poll well, because everybody is seeing that what Doge is about is not actually about government efficiency. It's not about making sure that what government does, it can do well. It is about demolishing the capacity of the state, which is a different project than making it efficient. And people don't like that. People think if the government is going to be doing something, it should be doing it efficiently. And so here is Byron Donalds, just so I'll go through a couple more poll numbers here in a second, but as a real life illustration of this, here's Byron Donalds at a super restrictive town hall event. Let me go through, just before we play this clip, all of the restrictions on attendance at this town hall. And then I want you to listen to the audience, because it's pretty crazy. So this is a town hall that you had to be pre-registered for, like 3 days in advance. Registration ended on Friday, April 18th for the event on Monday, April 21st. Okay? So you had to pre-register. Only 700 tickets were guaranteed. Only voting constituents of Byron Donald's districts were even eligible. If you are a constituent but you didn't vote, you are not eligible. Family members, guests may bring up to 4 family members from the same household. Okay, so you're not able to bring a bunch of people with you. And guests must arrive between 4:30 and 5:30 p.m. to secure their spot for an event that starts at 6:30. To be able to enter, you have to have an email confirming that you were able to enter. You had to have a Florida ID matching the address in the district. And for out-of-state IDs, the team had to verify your district voter registration. Okay, so, look, this is not a bunch of paid protesters coming in from California and New York. All right, let's listen to this question that was asked and how the audience responded.
Okay, so the first question comes to us from Susan Sutton from Fort Myers. Susan?
Susan? Oh, hey Susan, how you doing?
All right, Susan, as a member of the Oversight Committee, what oversights are you imposing on Elon Musk and Doge?
Great question.
Okay.
I guess they like that question.
Okay, so what the question was, if you couldn't hear it, as a member of the Oversight Committee, what oversight are you putting on Elon Musk and Doge? Okay, and the reaction from that was very obviously that they don't like what Elon Musk and Doge is doing. And he tries to answer this. Here's him responding in part to that question and another question about Elon Musk and Doge.
Elon Musk and Doge have been authorized by the President of the United States. Don't leave. Are you ready? You ready for the other half of it? The previous president, President Biden. So you don't want to hear, you do not want to hear the full story. You don't want to hear the full story. Allow me to educate and bring you the full story. And when you're ready, I'm going to tell you, because I don't want you to yell and not hear the full story. Because you're not listening. You're yelling. Here we go. I'm going to tell you the full story.
So there you go. And like I said, we're going to get into some of the substance, but that's just to illustrate Doge is not popular. Also, to help you illustrate, he won that district 70-30 in 2024. 3 months ago, or 4 or 5, 6 months ago, right? So this is not, a bunch of New York libs. Here's some other polls. Plus 14%, like most people by 14 points think that government is inefficient. Even 6+6 is the reaction to Doge is a good idea. Right? And so there is a real feeling, or there has been generated a feeling among the American public that there needs to be some sort of project to make government more efficient. And yet, even with this, you could not ask for a better place from which to start this project, right? If you are somebody that actually wanted to make government more efficient, you could not start from a place of more charity from the American people, right? A plus 14 point positive on government is inefficient, plus 6 point even on Doge is a good idea, right? So that must mean something when in the same poll, people are saying, in reaction to the statement, Doge is doing a good job, -12. -12 points, Doge is doing a good job. -18 points, Musk is doing a good job with Doge. Right? This is in the same poll, people are saying this is a good idea, but wow, they are screwing it up. So you got to be able to reckon with that if this is actually your project. Only 30% of people say it should continue at the pace that it's continuing now. 30 people say that the idea is needed, but they need to slow down and actually, do a project of government efficiency. And then 30 to 40% of people say it's reckless, or 30% of people say it's reckless and should stop now. 4% of people say there's no need to cut the federal government. 60% of people disapprove of the job that Doge is doing. 57% of voters, including 16% of Republicans, said that Musk has too much power in decisions that affect the country. Right? So, talk about the substance here in a second, but I think it is accurate to say extremely unpopular. If that's not extremely unpopular, I don't know what is extremely unpopular if that's not. Okay, let's continue listening to Yaffy.
Believe it or not, Valley Labor Report hasn't changed my mind. Is Doge perfect? No. But it's putting us on a path of fundamentally changing the role of the federal government in our lives. I said the tech upgrades they're pushing is a plus as well.
And so what I said to that, I did respond to that, but it was after this segment aired. And so I said that, it's not really so much about, did Yaffy change his opinion? It's, can Yaffy discern reality from fan fiction, right? I mean, that's where we're at, right? If, because it's not, I don't think at this point, it's a matter of opinion. Is Doge doing a good job? It's just do you agree with that statement or not is a reflection of your ability to perceive the world as it exists, not as you want it to be. Okay, let's continue.
And it wasn't that long ago where the Doge team members went on Fox News with Bret Baier and were outlining all of just the crazy stuff that goes on in our government. Now, you can go to the Doge.gov website as well and just see. Let me give you some examples of what's going on today. And this is why I think it's so important. You have this from Secretary Brooke Rollins out of the USDA. He says, at my direction, the USDA has taken action to ensure illegal aliens do not receive federal benefits by hardworking taxpayers. They also posted something.
Wow, that's interesting. Adam, did you realize that undocumented immigrants are just being given SNAP? Did you know that they were eligible for that before the Trump administration?
I hadn't heard that. I mean, I guess not that I'm aware of.
Oh, hold on. I'm being told that's not true.
Oh.
Actually, undocumented immigrants have never been eligible for SNAP.
Well, that's why I hadn't heard it, I guess.
Interesting. Also, a Government Accountability Office report detailing and describing improper payments that were issued under the SNAP program. This detailed report that goes through all of the ways, how are improper payments happening? What are some ways that we can fix it? Do you know if that report was issued by Doge?
I don't know.
It was not. It was not. It was issued by the Government Accountability Office. Was that report issued during the Trump administration or during the Biden administration?
It's pretty quick to be in the Trump administration.
Well, I mean, these Doge guys are really efficient, though.
True, they're moving fast. I don't know. Fast. Well, surely Trump's done that already.
No, it was the Biden administration that issued a 20-page report on improper SNAP payments, how they happen, and how to fix it. Let's continue.
It said the Department of Justice has started cutting millions of dollars in wasteful grants. Some of the greatest hits include national listening sessions of individuals with lived experience. Now, we could also talk about what the cuts to USAID. And I will admit one thing. In real dollars, what Elon Musk has cut through Doge isn't as much as needs to be cut. That's why I was saying Congress needs to do something, because the fact that Doge could cut on its own, it's just not possible. But the reason why I think Doge is more important is looking at the big picture, which I like to do. Looking at the big picture, it is at least is getting us to think differently.
Okay, let's pause for a second here. This is really interesting. I didn't look at this before, but the listening sessions that he was mentioning, that is about crime victims. So there were listening sessions for crime victims, and the goal looks like it was about how do we make sure that crime victims are taken care of, and how do we support these crime victims' families. And so that actually seems like it would be a Trump administration thing, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, from what I hear, they're really concerned about crime, right? And so conceivably, you would be concerned about the victims of the crimes, and you'd want to hear from them. You'd want to listen to them and know what their experience has been like, and how the government could be better serving them, right? That's a joke. Also, how much money was really spent on that? Like, give me a break when we spend how much on so many other things. And so, like, the whole idea of, waste, fraud, and abuse. Like, is there waste, fraud, and abuse? Yeah, but it's not the stuff you're talking about, right? You want to get into the war machine and the military-industrial complex. Now we're talking, but that's not where they want to look.
And let's dwell on this. The dollar value of the cuts has not been that much. 2% of the federal budget, $160 billion, and that is if the current estimates are true, which I do not believe they are. Let's remember that they had previously detailed an $8 million cut as an $8 billion cut, right? And folks were constantly, I mean, this is not a small thing, right? This is not a small thing. If you are constantly misrepresenting by orders of magnitude both the quantity and the quality of the things that you are saying that you're cutting, this is not something that is good for the government. And so as people continue to find out how they were misrepresenting both the amount of the cuts and actually what they were, Doge has become less and less and less transparent, and they are making it less and less and less easy for people to actually go back and see what they're doing and see what it is actually that they are cutting. Additionally, they're saying that they have saved $160 billion, but a new analysis from a nonpartisan research and advocacy group estimated that Doge's actions will actually cost $135 billion this fiscal year. They do this by seeking to tally the costs associated with putting tens of thousands of federal employees on paid leave, by rehiring mistakenly fired workers, by losing productivity, and more. The Partnership for Public Service is a nonpartisan nonprofit that focuses on the federal workforce. They estimate that estimate is based on the $270 billion in annual compensation for federal workforce. Calculating the impact of Doge's actions from paid leave to productivity hits, the $135 billion cost to taxpayers does not include the expense of defending multiple lawsuits challenging Doge's actions, nor the impact of estimated lost tax collections due to staff cuts at the IRS, which that alone is estimated to cost in uncollected revenue $500 billion. $500 billion in lost revenue because of the IRS staff cuts.
Hey, 5 seconds, just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate.
Let's continue.
Important branding to look at a lot of stuff that goes on in our government, and we have to ask ourselves, why? Why do we have all this stuff? And a lot of what they're cutting and a lot of the efficiency they're doing isn't necessarily about cutting real dollars. It's just about cutting stuff the government doesn't need that just screws up our economy or whatever it is. But they've also talked about how some of the computer systems that these bureaucracies use are old and outdated. We talked about how when it comes to retirement, it takes months for a government employee to retire because they have to get documents and put it in Iron Mountain and all that, and that needs to change, it needs to be upgraded. All of that I think is good, and I think it's important.
So, it's good to make systems more efficient, but a lot of times that actually takes, and to update files and stuff like that, but that actually takes initial expenditures to be able to move from systems that currently work to new, more efficient systems, importantly, without disrupting service. Because, you know, what he did at Twitter, I think is very obviously has affected the, the ability of the platform to work as a platform. It's much more glitchy than it used to be. But ultimately, if Twitter is more glitchy than it used to be, that's not a big problem. If people don't get their Social Security checks, that's a big problem. And that's actually why, like the Social Security Administration, for example, did not update its files because, and one of the things that they were talking about at the beginning of Doge was, there's 140-year-olds collecting Social Security. It's just simply not true. It's simply not true. The only reason that it looks like there are people in the system that are 150 years old is there's like some COBOL is like the coding language that the Social Security Administration uses. And so whenever they don't have a birth date for somebody or a death date for somebody, that it like defaults to this date that's like 150 years ago. But the Social Security Administration automatically stops payments at 120 years old. And the Social Security Administration's improper payments are something like 1%. It is ridiculously low. And they knew that there were people that had died that were in the Social Security system that were not getting paid. Most importantly, these people were not getting paid, but their name still showed up in the system. And what was determined, like people knew about this, but it was determined that it would be less efficient to actually update the files because they weren't getting paid. They were never going to be paid because you can't issue payments to people that are over 120 years old in the system. And so it was just more efficient to just leave them there because they didn't realize that there would be somebody who would go out in bad faith, fearmonger about this kind of stuff, right? So if you actually just want to update just for the sake of having a clean file system, you have to have appropriations from Congress to do that. And they don't have, the Social Security Administration wasn't able to do that with the operating funds. And, speaking of, like, what is the mission of Doge? I posit that the mission of Doge is actually just simply to undercut state capacity, to make it more difficult for the government to be able to inhibit people like Elon Musk, to make it easier for people like Elon Musk to get away with tax fraud and things like that, right? And so if that is actually the mission, as opposed to making the government more efficient, what you would anticipate when they come in is not questions about the systems and technically how do these systems work and learning from people. You would anticipate questions like how people were interrogated at the IRS. This is Maurice Vinton, who used to work at the U.S. Digital Service, which is what was turned into Doge before the Trump administration. And this is how she said that the Doge people interrogated folks at the IRS and the U.S. Digital Service in an interview with the Majority Report.
All 162 USDS employees were brought in for 15-minute interviews. So we were kind of at first trial run of what it's like to interview 162 people in a day. And the people, we were told these are new teammates that are excited to meet us. And what we were met with was people who would only provide their first names. If you'd ask a follow-up question, like, what brings you to government? This actually happened not to me, but to my coworker. They were told this is a one-way conversation only. I mean, that's not a very threatening question. What makes you excited to be here? So that first set of interactions really set the tone for this new.
What kind of questions did they ask you?
Oh, they were, who is your favorite person at the U.S. Digital Service? Who's your favorite teammate? What makes you exceptional? What's your favorite product that you've worked on in government? It was so quick, and also the questions didn't, to me, really seem to be with people who understood what they were getting into. And government is, as you said, complex. There's a lot of systems, there's things to know. And asking me who my favorite teammate is doesn't really, I think, talk to the scale of the complexity of what we were trying to do and, what we do every day.
Was it your sense that they were looking for social networks so that in the event when I hear those questions, it is almost like a bizarro world union organizer. Because sussing out the social networks there, who are the people that I can, once I establish some type of marker, maybe it doesn't come from you, but if I know that you're friends with, Bill and Mary, and I find out from Mary that she likes NPR or something, then I know that Bill and you may be a problem.
That's a really great question and a really great theory I'd never really thought about or we discussed. We didn't really know what the purpose was.
So I think that's interesting and should inform like how we perceive how these people view their mission, right? Do they view their mission as actually improving government, making it more efficient, empowering civil servants to do their jobs, or do they see it as destroying the state? I think that should inform how we view these people. And another thing that should inform is what products and what services they try to cut. Vinton talks about some of that here.
When I joined the IRS as a detailee on loan from USDS in 2022, all of my IRS colleagues talked about was how little capacity they had or ability they had to answer the phones. Only 12% of phone calls were answered. And there were these front page that year. There were these front page stories in national news with photos of paper backlogs, so people's tax returns at processing centers in the Midwest. And with the Inflation Reduction Act, there was a lot of hiring, a lot of new technology investment that went to reduce that paper backlog and to increase the ability for the IRS to answer calls. And we got it up to 88% the next year, which is heroic that even was possible. So when you ask what they're cutting that capacity. Now, I really worry about what it's going to look like next year during filing season, what the wait times are going to be. This year, a lot of the filing season efforts were kind of held off from the initial probationary firings, but I know that there are RIFs coming now that filing season is over. And so that's, I'm sorry, reduction in force. So that is the process by which people are being fired or placed on an administrative leave. So not working, laid off. So I worry about next filing season. That's on the taxpayer side. On the call center side, when you get to the higher audits, go ahead.
Yeah, before we get to the audits, I just also want to make it clear that when the response time, when the backlog increases, when the phone calls don't go answered, that is a cost borne by the citizen. And to be clear, it's a cost borne by the people probably in the top 75 percentile of earnings. Above that, they have accountants who are waiting on the phone. They have, H&R Block that's waiting on the phone, or they're not having to do it. So the cost associated to, wealthier people is less. It doesn't inhibit their productivity. They don't have to take time off from work. They don't have to use their day off or whatever it is.
That's exactly right. I mean, I remember I was at a shop in Pennsylvania, and a woman said, she didn't know where I worked. She was just talking to her friend and said she'd been on the phone on hold for 7 hours the previous day, and she had to finally hang up. So that's an example of what it was like. And there were plans to have better technology to make it so that it was less reliant on, so many call center agents. There are ways to make it all more efficient, and we were all going in that direction. But unfortunately, never got there. And that capacity and that team has been cut on the compliance side. So effectively what the Inflation Reduction Act did was to kind of rebuild a whole bunch of the capacity to go after and to explore those larger, more complex cases. Obviously, it did happen, but not at the scale and the pace of which these large corporations or high net wealth individuals were growing. And those were there were probationary firings in February. Roughly 7,000 people were let go. Probationary means they were new, right? So right. New talent hired in the last 2 years.
New talent or promoted talent.
Yes. So you're like your brand new excited teammates, and also the ones that had achieved a lot of really great work. Within the IRS, the teams that do that auditing, it was 90% their teams that were impacted. So of the 7,000 people, roughly 6,700 were fired during the probationary firings. And I expect that ratio to continue as they go through more layoffs. So it's just, I don't know what next season is going to look like in terms of, the call center, but also in the IRS's ability to explore those large cases.
90% of the departments that do these large cases, auditing wealthy people like Elon Musk, have been eliminated. How do you hear things like that and still believe that this is a good faith project? I really don't understand that. And here's another illustration, staying with the IRS. The direct file program is another thing that the IRS is moving to eliminate. Let's listen to how she describes the direct file program and what's happening there.
So DOGE has indicated that they want to shut direct file down. And that has been devastating news. It was reported by the AP last week that is their intent. They've not confirmed that, but it was definitely where the conversation was going when I was still inside, actually, frankly. And unfortunately, that continued. Again, there didn't seem to be a lot of logic behind it. Direct file is a startup. It is a startup within government. We thought that there would be some interest there. Maybe there was a Venn diagram of efficient products that people love, interest in that, and there wasn't at all, apparently. So it takes a lot of trust with states, a lot of relationship building with states, and there had been no conversations with states as well. So unfortunately, it looks like it's going to be another line item that they've just decided to cut. And the direct file team, I'm not sure what their future is. They don't know what their future is. And, it's really just devastating for not just taxpayers. I think it's also devastating for the IRS itself. That team was so talented, is so talented.
Do you have a sense of how it worked this filing season?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so the Net Promoter Score is a very common private sector kind of promoter or score index that says how much people like your product or not. So last year, direct files was plus 74. It's astronomically high. Apple's is 72. Wow. This year it was 84, plus 84. So somehow the Net Promoter Score, which was already inordinately high, got even higher. Direct file users, it increased their trust in the IRS by 86%. So you can actually increase trust in government when you deliver really great things that they love. So it went really well this year. There were no bugs. Everyone that used it loved it. Some of the feedback that people gave.
That's amazing to me. Yeah. That is amazing to me in the best of times that you would have a product rollout that was so effective. But I would imagine that everybody associated with that was preoccupied to some degree with the idea of like, is this going to exist tomorrow? Do I have a job tomorrow? Am I at 8 p.m.? Am I going to get a notice that I'm fired? And yet the thing was that successful.
You're absolutely right. That's what it was like for that team all filing season. And people were openly speculating. Elon Musk had tweeted a confusing tweet in February that led some people to believe that direct file had been shut down. It hadn't been shut down. It was doing great. And so all throughout filing season, the team just had to focus on delivering more features. They rolled out. So an internet meme had always been, why doesn't the IRS just tell me how much I owe? Instead, they ask me, I get it wrong, and they throw me in jail. And the direct files team started to input what the IRS knew about you into the tax return. It started to do that pre-population, and people loved it, and it worked. The IRS was using that as a use case for its modernization efforts. And so it is just really, that happened during filing season. So it's just really a devastating situation for the team and for taxpayers.
I mean, seriously, IRS direct file, just to explain a little bit more about it, that just means you don't have to go through like H&R Block or TurboTax or anything like that. That is such a common sense thing that it is absurd that it is not the standard, right? Why should I have to pay a private company a bunch of money to do my taxes for me when the government knows how much I owe it? Like, why can't the government just tell me? If you cared about an efficient government, you would do that. You would just have the government tell you what you owe it. And the Biden administration was trying to do that. And you would think that if Elon Musk actually cared about an efficient government, he would be supporting this program, but he doesn't care about that. He wants to destroy the government. So, here's a couple of other things that the Doge team has cut. USAID, I know that people don't like USAID, and people don't like you bringing up that children have died because of it, but it's true. Abdo, an 18-month-old boy, had been rushed to a clinic, this is in the New York Times, had been rushed to a clinic by his mother as he was dying. His ribs protruded from his withered body. The next day, a doctor laid him out on a blanket with a teddy bear motif, his eyes closed. Like the other 11 children, Abdo starved to death in the weeks after President Trump froze all U.S. foreign assistance, said local aid workers and a doctor. American-funded soup kitchens in Sudan, including the one near Abdo's house, had been the only lifelines for tens of thousands of people besieged by fighting. So that's another thing that they've cut. They've literally killed... I mean, you can think that's not politically correct or that's like improper or uncouth of me to say, but it's true. Elon Musk's Doge has killed babies. They've also cut the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which protects people from financial scams. It returned $20 billion directly to consumers that had been defrauded from them. And who knows how many billions of dollars it saved. And of course, we're looking at $500 billion less in tax collections this year because of the layoffs from the IRS. And so all of this is becoming less and less popular. People are becoming more and more frustrated with what Elon is doing, frustrated with the lack of respect that he has for our nation's civil servants. And so he's looking to step back. Let's play this clip.
The large slug of work necessary to get the Doge team in place and working in the government to get the financial house in order is mostly done. So I think I'll continue to spend, a day or two per week on government matters for as long as the president would like me to do so, and as long as it is useful. But starting next month, I'll be allocating far more of my time to Tesla.
So there you go. starting to crumble. And, I mean, it really is amazing that he's talking about, the large slug of the work has been done. And it's like, you started with a $2 trillion goal, and then you went down to a $1 trillion goal. And now you're saying maybe we'll hit $160 billion by the end of the fiscal year without, evidence of that, right? So, unmitigated failure is, just to wrap this up and put it, call back to my assessment in response to Yaffy. The Doge committee is an unmitigated failure, and it's starting to fall apart. And, whether or not you agree with that sentiment is not so much a reflection of, like, what is your opinion as can you perceive the world in which you exist.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.